Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, to you everyone, wherever you are watching this conference. Is better. I hope that you can see me, you can hear me well. Thank you for joining me today on April 2nd for the keynote, an architect in the era of BC and AD. BC is the before cloud and AD is after DevOps, after DevSecOps. When I was reached out for this topic, um, the role of the architect came into my mind at very first, and I really appreciate the cloud architect role in the organization and the changing business today. I realize that it is one of the essential role in which is driving the transformation in the right or wrong way. Uh, and uh, but you would say that why architect, because IT is not just about cloud. It is much beyond that. And you are right. I don't mean to disrespect your opinion. Um, so here why what we'll do today is we'll see the perspective of business, the business perspective. Then we detail on the aspect of the IT, and then we come to the cloud and the architect role. Before we go further into details, let's say these two gentlemen, one gentleman, one lady, Chris and Olivia, what are they doing? Let's see. Chris and Olivia are our fictional character. So in the first scene, Chris goes to the bank to transfer money to his father. His father is 95 years old, and he's transferring to other country. Can you imagine this is bank when he reached to he has bicycle and he reached to the bank and sees such crowd, and he's in queue. While on the other side, in second scene, you see Olivia. She prefers. She's 22 years old and generalist. She loves shopping. She loves social media. She loves to control his finances. And what she does is she believes in the digital. She believes in the new technologies. So the uses of in what she uses actually here is she goes to the bank is having the modern technologies. They have she shares the identity. She provide the application um, provide the right screens, right access, and for her account. So they span growth, borrow, and protest in line with the finance health. Everything is on her screen in first and the second scene. So basically, then in the new habits, the organizations are changing to themselves. They are doing the digital selling. They are selling their products on the various platforms. So uh, the, all the logistics are done by e-commerce. The sites like Amazon, the sites, various other businesses are totally on digital. The complete it's all the other the other aspect is that there are a lot of innovation happening in IT to enable these functionalities, these architecture, and the secure way of doing the transactions. And to an estimate, there is one third of the IT spend the companies are doing on innovation. The innovation are on the to have the total customer experience, so that the applications they have must have the low latency, and it must be secure. The security and authentication is the prime concern. Has been prime concern. Is still you as you CIOs, you have these as one of the top three criterias when you identify and select the new systems. And right now the user habit is they want to go agile. They want to the screen and the transaction in fraction of a second. The challenges for IT or the CIOs and the IT roles are that the governance need to be adaptive in the new IT infrastructure management. That while saying that AI and the technology like AI, machine learning, they are enabling us to take the right decision sometimes on behalf of humans. One example is today is AI on the health. There are health causes. There are serious health conditions are being treated and being analyzed by AI in addition to the real doctor. Like the health, if there are conditions like cardiac conditions, the heart arteries and the other part of the body, which AI has the right data and the information, and they predict um, the symptoms. They predict the ailments before it really happens. So it is really the positive side of AI. Let's pause here just for a moment and give a big applause to Vijay Balan, who is the founder of this community, and for his contribution that he is all doing. He is a cancer survivalist fighting happily. He's on stage 5 cancer, and actually on 15th of this month he's going for the surgery for operation there in Germany. uh, with this community for last 11 years, he was able to save 6,000 plus children. The root cause of, I mean, that was his mission, building the communities to saving the children affected by this serious disease, and provide the education as well. So it is really appreciate, this is a mission, and with this vision, Mr. Vijay is helping the community. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for inviting me and be part of this webinar. uh, to start with, now on the main topic, is there are 6 steps that we'll see today, um, about about the role of the architect in the new era. We'll go through the, well, I'm introducing you, and then after I introduce you for half a minute, then we'll see why everybody is talking on the transformation, and for that, enabling that transformation, what are the different architectures or the architects, and those are in the industry, and they are enabling those transformation in the enterprises. And when come to enterprise, we'll map the enterprise function, the business capabilities, to IT, and IT to cloud. Cloud is ultimately a big enabler today in hosting the most modern architectures, and it has different dimensions um, analyzed by the architects. And when an architect has in certain situation, how does he react? We'll also see the planning process, or the blueprinting that architect does related to a different persona. There are the successful implementation of the cloud. There are metrics of the business success, we'll see. So let's see in the next step who I am. As you see, my name is Satyan. I am from Brussels. I live in Brussels for last 21 years. uh, and I help the organizations, actually work and help organizations across the globe in taking the right decision for making a change in the operating model, which is on the cloud. But before I say anything about cloud, let me ask you a question. Do you see any big changes happening in the last 5 years? Yes, of course. And what about 2 years? Yes, of course. So the changes are happening. Not just the COVID. COVID is one big change that we have seen, in our life. This is one of its fundamental change, which gives the meaning of life, a fundamental change in fundamental meaning of life. Many of you are CIOs, many of you are head of cloud center of excellence, and today world is fast changing, full of the fast changing technologies. You often come out the challenges between decision making process. This is just about me. I'll not go through more detail, but yes, if you want to connect to me, you can connect me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And I also have my blog with satyankumar.com. Right. So what I help is one of the prime responsibilities, when the enterprise customers, the enterprise organizations are going through the transformation. They want to move from point A to point B, and point B to point C sometimes, depending on their plan. So this transformation, this change of the state should go in a very systematic and the planned manner. Uh, there are methodology and the frameworks available, and it is, architect plays a very good role, so that it's transformation enable, or business survival also sometimes depends on the transformation. There are many threats in the current business scenarios, and of course those threats are also to be taken care of during the process of moving from point A to point B, or reaching out to the target operating state. Here you see the 10 industries. Why the transformation is important? Why the is it really happening? Yes, the transformation is happening. See the amount of the expected growth of these top 10 companies, and they are going to hit 1 trillion in next 5 years. So the industry, the new tech industry, new generation industry, or industry 4.0, has got very complex. It's all integrated. It's all There's a lot of trust, security, and integrations that are part of the concept methodology, will be used as a next step. So, while saying this, we know that IT environments are complex, and even these are getting complex and more complex these days. In the complexity of the environments, uh, the organizations want to simplify their IT state. What are the prime top few things when they move to the technology like cloud? Technical debt is prime. It's 41% of the companies, they are moving to the cloud, because to get rid of their legacy environment, the hardware software they have purchased on premises, is the prime. The other two is application modernization. Of course, they want to move to the APIs, they want to move to the most newest architectures, and to take the in the um, change, the consumer habits changing, and they want to adopt it. And security, as I said a few minutes back, the security is one of the top concern. IT systems are complex, they are moving to the cloud, but do they want to move like this? So who will help? That's where the architects come. They help organization to move to the cloud in a systematic and graceful way. Fundamentally, the organization concept, the concept and the structuring of the organization as per the TBM taxonomy, that best depicts how in where the IT and cloud in the hierarchy. See here, um, on the top layer you have the business units which are generating the revenues, and or they are organized in such a way that they support the main corporate. It is supported by the business architects. Business architects um, analyze and build the business capabilities to to have customers and partner the right experience. On on this top layer, it is supported by various solutions in form of the application, product and services. Then each of that product, application and the services are further subdivided into the towers and ultimately the cost. So from where the cost is coming, the cost um, in the uh, in the business cases, if you see the business case, the cost comes um, from the labor, which is on-premise or internal labor or outside services, the software, hardware, the facilities, and multiple um, multiple utilities. So in this, the conversation starts when the cost is, you see that 41% of the companies are due to the cost, and those costs are cost levers are those it starts a conversation that to add how do we add the right capability. So this is how we see the organization at the higher level. Exploring the aspect of cloud infrastructure architecture. Infra architecture is where it sits on the top in the enterprise or architect of the enterprise situation. The the It's a complete set, the architects of the enterprise. That means the architects which architect the business, which are the business architects. They combine the business capabilities. Data architect will go into see the aspects of the data integrity, the data encryption, data privacy, etc. The application architect will go and see what sort of data it is and what are the different regulatory and the audit concerns and the various aspects of the functionality and the feature of the application. While the infrastructure architect and the security architect, they are all a very essential part of the whole ecosystem of the architects. The infrastructure architect is where the cloud infrastructure is coming. The architect or the enterprise cloud architect creates the cloud strategy, and the cloud strategy is not in isolated it's not in isolation. It sits with the strategic plan. The strategic plan is that consists of primarily the IT strategy. What is if the customer has the data center, what is the data center strategy? Does customer want to shrink the footprint of the data center, want to move the cloud for as an extension of the DC, or they totally want to move to the cloud? What is the current state of the automation? What is the outsourcing strategy, the vendor management strategy, whether the enterprise wants as much as insourcing or outsourcing, or it's a hybrid model where certain pieces are administered, or certain pieces are done by internal, like SAS, and IS in the past is done by the other vendors or the partners. This is how it looks like, the all in all three phases of the cloud transformation, which starts with making the cloud, what they say is the CBO, which is Cloud Business Office. Then staffing the right people, identify the approach of the talent management. This is first, which is related to the people. The second very important part is the process is in the new operating model. In the process, how you control, how you govern the data, how the data governance, the security governance, the finance management, the FinOps, the vendor management, the portfolio management, the interoperability thing, the architecture, the operation management. These are all are very essential part of the governance. And when the organizations have the right people, when they establish the governance process, then in the operation is where the in a systematic manner the systems are migrated to the new ones, to the new operating model. The function of cloud architect is in the new way of working, the to shift from plan, build and run to engage, integrate and manage, which is most suitable for cloud. Cloud drives the agility, cloud drives the efficiency. In an ideal situation, in a good business case, there are four categories, the four pillar of shifting the model. The first is elasticity or the industrialization, which is the massification. In the massification, um, there is a setup of the center of excellence, setting up the governance, um, integrate and build the run and build model as per the new technologies, new things like infrastructure as a code, for example, standardize the proactive and predictive operations, and do the mass level observability or single pane of glass. Deliver the FinOps. For delivering the FinOps, AI Ops is needed. The server footprint reduction and right routing strategy is uh, important component. The architects help to extract the value by using the Agile and DevSecOps, the pipeline, the automation, and creation of the multidisciplinary team. Um, right? Modernize the infrastructure and the application, building the programmable infrastructure, utilizing the infrastructure as a code strategy, creating the business value, um, and the new KPIs. Okay, here is the very important step for the cloud architects, that how normally the cloud architect they think. They think in a different cross section of the real architecture. For example, here, they think in the dimensions. Uh, their literal thinking is in they consider the word is the multidimensional. Their dimensions in architectures in the correct architecture is, for example, how the transition of the future state will happen. What are the different gates and tools that would be used, who are the critical people, what is the service delivery, the attrition rate, you're looking on the future, the flexibility, whether there any risk mitigation such as COVID-19 recently. So they think in the multi-dimensional way, and their thought process must be as realistic as possible. So that means for the finance, there is a separate view of the architecture. For finance, it is more related to their KPIs. For the business, it is the ability to support the business capabilities. And for IT, it is highly available and fault tolerant systems. These are the modern architectural pattern for the cloud. Traditional web applications have typically followed a layered architecture: presentation, service, business, and data access layers over a relational database. While such applications often have a great deal of capability, there are practical limitations on how well they grow, evolve, and scaling also in a dynamically scalable environment like the cloud. The cloud is all about elasticity on demand and cost saving, which is great, but it is also massively multi-tenanted and built with commodity hardware, which means it is prone to failure. Does this mean you can't use the cloud if you have how many nines in your SLA? That's what a typical architecture is decided on the factors like how you decompose the various component, how much elasticity is availability is really needed, what is the fit for case architecture. Okay, and to achieve this is very important, where the most architects, they don't go individually on the problems individual level. Okay, uh, based on the challenges in building the reliable, scalable, and the secure application. So here, if you see, these are the most common patterns. These patterns are in data management, design, implementation, and messaging. Each pattern describes the problem that pattern addresses, consideration for applying the pattern, and an example based on, let's say, it is on Microsoft Azure or AWS. Most of the pattern, they include code samples or snippet that shows how to implement the pattern. However, they are also related to not just on Azure, but also on distributed systems in some way. So for individual systems, cloud architects or the architecture team of those systems, they see what are the most challenging and the common patterns in terms of if you can decompose certain part of the uh, ID system, three-tier application, and if you can integrate with let's say for the MQ series, for the database pattern, what is your caching strategy, what is the event messaging, the saga pattern, the shared database, whether you can share the database with multiple services or not. There are observability patterns like log aggregation, what should be your strategy to combine the logs, the performance metrics, how much performance degradation that you can afford by having the different level of the auditing, the distributed tracing, and health checks. So these are all very important patterns which are very useful for the senior architects. Now coming to the almost the last part of this presentation, which is how you react as a strategic architect. So a strategic architect or the architects, actually they enable the cloud center of excellence with the cloud newer cloud operating model. This is a 180-degree view of the most common cloud center of excellence. So they help in assess and design, they help in the operationalization, and also there are CCoE service running the managed CCoE cloud center of excellence. These there are 7 pillars of a typical cloud center of excellence. These are the IT finances, like how you charge back, budget, and invoice, and track the cost. You have the security strategy, which is also it is assess and design before the operationalization is done. The right people engagement from the business and from the other IT towers, the cloud transformation and migration office. This decides that how the strategy for the applications in your model. Then migrating the application is done by the CMF or Cloud Management Factory or Cloud Modernization Factory, which is responsible for communication, for training, and having the organizational change management in the future. The SLA, which is important part, the SLA for cloud service provider and SLA for third parties. And finally, when everything is done, what are the right set of metrics, the cloud success metrics and the business metrics as a part of operation governance and monitoring. Architects help in enabling all these um, services. Coming to the decision making part, architect have to decide, um, of course related to the systems, what are the architectural architecture style of typical application. Okay, typical layer, uh, the like the microservices, like big data, like the compute intensive loads, because the cloud is changing, how the application are designed and secure are also changing. Instead of monolith and application are decomposed now into the smaller pieces and the decentralization services. So there are the technological choices for compute, data storage, etc. That those are part of the decision making. Then application architecture contribution is also one of the key aspect and success of the business application, where enterprise needs to decide the different architecture, guiding principles, the design pattern, and the best practices. And finally, on filtering down the style, the choices, and application architecture, is there are the best practices in form of the well architect framework, where the individual component or individual action list are assessed and checked and verified and validated on the parameters of the cost optimization, for the parameter of operational excellence and performance, efficiency, reliability, and security towers. Uh, this is another aspect of the another function of the architect. They create and align the cloud strategy. I won't go actually in this detail. This is the high level, to have to empower the people, to have the right set of governance and to determine the future technology and the future methodology to go into the final state. They help mitigating risk by establishing proper governance around the cloud. These are This is the typical sphere of the key component of the architect function. I won't go into the detail. um, and on the architects, during the migration process, what they involve, the the CCoE and the strategy, in framing out the right strategy, so that in the cloud you will have the resources provisioning for adopting and monitoring of the application IT landscape. The cloud strategy actually is a living document, and the criteria when migrate versus adopt need to be consistently reviewed. The last section of the today's talk is planning like a cloud architect of the enterprise. The transformation framework in a nutshell. What's important is the perspective, the organizational or the enterprise perspective. Um, it's a business driven decision, so the business perspective is on the top, where see the value of the transformation, the process and the governance, the people, maturity, platform, and operations perspective. Okay, now we have come to the almost the last slide, which is architect as a support function to the other CXO and the heads of IT. In each decision making process, right hand side you have the personas, CEO, CTOs, CFO, CIOs, procurement head, application and infra head. And in left hand side you see the different strategy or the plan which architect combine, it adapts um, as per the different personas. Right, you have done everything. So you have got the cloud also, your application running on the cloud as per the cloud strategy. Then how would you measure that your the cloud implementation was success? This is very important to establish and compare the business case, have the right financial KPIs, the customer experience KPIs, return of investment, the capex and opex, what you plan and what you get, the scaling factor and adoption of the open source technology is also very important. When you have the automation, um, there are more and more companies they are preferring to the open source technologies. All right, with this, this is very important to understand that cloud is not a project. It's a habit change. It's an organizational change. So that's pretty much of it. Wanted to illustrate and articulate the architect in the the cloud era and the DevOps maturity era. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this journey. And if you want to connect with me, you can connect on LinkedIn. You can connect or follow me on the Twitter. With this, thank you very much. Thank you.